A warm welcome to you, and thanks for joining us at today's executive briefing.
Thank you so much. Absolute pleasure to be here and to be speaking on behalf of our institution, Stellenbosch University. Thank you.
So you've done lots of work on experiential learning at Stellenbosch. Can you share more about some of the things that you're working on?
Thank you so much. So our work at Stellenbosch University really is pegged in and hinges on the university's vision and mission 2040. And part of that is the transformative student experience. And unpacking that is really asking, how do we prepare our graduates for a world that is so uncertain? And it really is, we don't know what that world looks like. So the challenge is, what do we do to enable them to be able to be effective in a rapidly changing context and world? Going back to the drawing board was then to ask, so what are the skills and competencies that are emerging that is required of our graduates to be effective, and building a framework to connect the requirements of the world of work together with the students' experience at Stellenbosch University, and linking that to their course or degree requirements became imperative. We also took what we had within the environment. So we didn't go from scratch. We asked, what is there that we can work with, particularly the non-credit bearing learning, as we called it, the out of classroom student experience, and worked effectively with the experiential educators in that space or in that domain. One thing we had to do quite quickly was also to develop a framework to recognize the experiential learning on the academic transcript. So, not to bury it inside of a curriculum, but to pull it through and say, these are the skills and competencies the students developed within a specific activity, and have that stand out on the curriculum, the transcript, sorry. Important for the student was that then shows the learning as having developed a critical skill. So that became a critical component that also drew through from our experience and building the framework within the institution. As you have beautifully put out the framework of the different models of experiential learning, ours does map to the term that was used was the experiential course suite model, where there's a suite of offerings for our students. This suite of offerings is expanding, so we also ensure that when we identify a core need, we develop an offering the students can then take up. What is in the co-curriculum or experiential learning prospectus is what is already in the domain, what is already being offered. And gradually, year by year, that offerings are augmented. Some are taken out, some are included. The shifts that are currently happening in the university is asking, how do we map the curriculum to be responsive to the needs of the employers and the requirements of the emerging world, particularly in a rapidly technological space that's emerging. So we are back at the drawing board, where we now re-looking at what do we have that we can work with, what have we done really well, which is to show up student learning on the academic transcript for core competencies, and how do we take what is in the curriculum, maybe change what is now redundant, and bring in what is relevant, what is necessary for learning at this point in time, what we need emerging in the world. One thing that we are very committed to and passionate is particularly looking at social impact, looking at how our students engage as an active citizen in the world, and giving them the necessary tools and skills to be able to be effective. We know that the degree is no longer enough. That degree, as valued as it was a few, maybe 5 years even ago, is not enough to ensure our students succeed in the world of work. And we've really taken on seriously to ask, what is it that we now need to do in partnership with our industry partners and with our students. So we work together with the students to develop core offerings. What I also would like to comment on is the way the models was explained. A beautiful, wonderful composite. I have not seen that, and I really am so appreciative of the work that was done to try and sort of explain how these models are emerging. part of the work that we do is often these models tend to merge into one another in our space. So we won't necessarily only have a composite suite of offerings. It might emerge into an immersive experience built into something, or a 4-year longitudinal program. Part of what is also happening in our environment is the professional degrees, such as your engineering degree, the medical degrees, and so forth, are rapidly gaining traction in terms of embedding experiential learning that is measurable and connected to the global requirements, the global standards. So a lot of work is being done, particularly in that space, by our leading academics in the environment. I'm going to pause there and see if there's anything you'd want to tag on. There is a lot happening, but that's just really the nuggets that I've shared with you. It's been work over a number of years. It's emerging and gaining traction. So happy to have this conversation to see where it can go from here. Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you very much for that because it gives us a bit of an idea of the breadth and depth of what's going on at Stellenbosch. I think, it's one of the challenges that we're all facing at the moment is, it starts in the admissions office. And it's how do you have a conversation with a prospective student that's about, we as a university will help you over 3 or 4 years become relevant in the world of work. We're going to give you knowledge, we're going to give you skills, and that's still going to be applicable in 3, 4, 5 years' time. And I think it's a real challenge because even employers can't define very clearly. We saw that in the recent report that we did on AI in the workplace, where we interviewed employers. They couldn't clearly articulate what does that world of work look like. They know some of the things, that there will be substantial change, but because we can't identify it, the best way is really to get even closer to industry and start providing some of these sorts of experiences. Very interesting to hear what you had to say about the social impact theme. Sorry, the social impact theme is we're seeing this very much as a growing theme. It's certainly in demand from students, and it really makes them feel very, very connected to what's going on in their communities because there's a big challenge at the moment where universities around the world are considered to be seen as elitist and sort of separate from what's actually happening in the real world. So this is a great way for people to feel connected and be able to do some real things that have a demonstrable impact. Just on that issue of disconnect between what is seen to be happening in the world of work and the quite slow way that historically university curriculum has updated itself and tried to maintain its relevance. Um, in that area of skills gaps, what do you see as the aspects of this real world that we're failing to prepare students for in our current models?
Absolutely. That's a really important question. I think where we are failing our students is to really give them the ability to critically engage with change itself. And that is not an easy skill to transfer and to develop in the student. So if we don't know what that future world of work looks like, we need to be able to give them the ability to be able to navigate change effectively and to be able to adapt to something that might be the market might look one way in one day and then suddenly it's different. As we know, the socio-political terrain at the moment globally speaks for itself. How do we gear our graduates to be able to navigate that complexity? That for me is a critical skill moving forward. The usual like good communication skills and so forth, that's very easy. That's transferable skills, in terms of competencies. But the ones that are very difficult to develop in our students are the transformative competencies. How do you build a transformational space in your world of work? Or how do you create an environment that's conducive to strong teams? That's not something you can read up in a manual or go and Google quickly. You actually have to immerse yourself in a team setting and develop that capabilities and reflect on your own behavior in that. So core would be the transformational competencies and the behavioral skills, very difficult, but crucial for this changing world that we are in.
Yeah, and sort of I sort of reflect on something that I had a chat with Ed Mallison from Duke University yesterday about that the world is inherently messy. So, I sort of think about, how do you deal with the competencies and trying to check off competencies and record them on somebody's testament when, they might be going into an employment setting and, working on a particular project. That project may fail or may not it may not complete in time. How do you sort of at Stellenbosch, how do you deal with that? Because I mean, it's not to say that just because a project didn't complete that no learning happened. Of course, some learning happened. Failure is learning as well, right?
Absolutely. I think we learn best from when things didn't go that well and when we haven't succeeded on a project. I think the critical lessons there are crucial for what we would do differently. So when we do develop a learning a design for our students, it would begin with understanding what is it that we want students to be able to walk away with. That's one of the questions, the basic questions we ask. So it would split into three ways. Because we are a university, they need to be able to engage with their knowledge, that knowledge that we've been imparting. They have to be able to apply that in that setting in a relevant way that brings change effectively. They must be able to reflect on and engage on that experience. So, okay, they have applied the knowledge, but it wasn't applied in an appropriate manner, perhaps. The reflection component is crucial for the student to be able to think about what they would do differently in that given domain. And then that self-awareness. How did you show up? What was your contribution? What could you then do differently if you were able to do this project over again? Or how would you go about? What would you change in the design of the initiative that you've set forward? So those are the core components. So we don't just measure what the student did. We measure across three critical areas. The self is very important in developing that individual that knows what needs to be done differently, for instance.
Yeah, I really think that helps answer that question about, how do we make sure that these are authentic, or really authentic experiential learning experiences rather than just sort of using, experiential learning as a bit of a buzzword, because I know that we don't want to be seen to just be doing it because we sort of need to do it. It really needs to be a very authentic part of the student overall student experience. How do you think experiential learning? I mean, you mentioned some of this earlier about how you see it has evolved. But what do you see as emerging trends? What are the new things that you're seeing starting to emerge over the next few years, and particularly as that world of work is going to change quite substantially?
Absolutely. I think partly where we are, where we come from. If we spoke mentioned two words, experiential learning, you thought about K-12, you thought about not university or world of work. It didn't fit there. We gladly moved from that space to understand that experiential learning is not only, it's a model, but it's also a theory. But more than that, it's a philosophy. It's a way that people learn inherently. Whether we acknowledge it or not, experiential learning is happening all the time. What we're trying to do is to say, let's take that philosophy and turn it into a model and develop it into a theory of experiential learning and call it experiential education. And the evolution of that one can track almost. The power of where we're moving now is asking, and the models that were shared this morning is brilliant in asking how do we now take this experiential learning and map it into what is emerging out of our different contexts. And that emergence will still it'll continuously be changing and adapting to the needs of specific contexts. We know that learning is context specific. So what we're doing perhaps in Singapore will be very different to what's happening perhaps in Canada or in South Africa, and how we would change and adapt those models to meet the contextual needs of the educators and the learners. So that is something I see being done over time effectively. One of the pieces that excites me a great deal is the way knowledge is being constructed and deconstructed because of artificial intelligence. And there's a lot of arguments among academics about how that's going to happen and the notion and the words that's often used, it's not powerful knowledge because it's not created from a space of the consciousness. That in itself is going to be under pressure in very short space of time. We don't know how soon, but we know soon enough. The very mere fact when we talk about knowledge, it's going to be contested in another way. Yes, it's always been in universities, but it will take another form of contestation. I think the big piece that excites me about experiential learning because it requires us not only to engage with knowledge, knowledge will become a component of that engagement, but it's going to require our being, our presence in a space. It's going to require connectivity and relationality. And AI cannot duplicate or replicate that. It's a very human activity. It's how do we show up in a space? How do we make sense of an environment? And the utilization of artificial intelligence will become as a collaborative process rather than the process. So experiential learning for me will be so embedded in our educational processes. That's what I envision for the future, that it, as much as we would have put together a course 101 for students on science, for instance, it will have a core component that requires the student to engage actively with that course content, not just from a cerebral point of view. The true experiential learning cycle starts with the student always and ends with the student. So it has to be student centered. So that's also a core component that will emerge. Students will be a little bit more fussy and more demanding about how they want to be engaged with in their learning journeys as well. So that collaborative process of co-designing learning will be very strong in the future as well. It's not going to be as much as what does the environment know, but how can we collectively co-create an experience that allows that learning to emerge. These are some of the thoughts that's been bubbling under. I'm going to be very bold to say, I think we are going to see a new educational model emerge not less than a decade from now. It will be new, it will have facets of the old, but it will be a new model that will emerge. We've held on to the old bastions of how to do education a very long time, and we've sat comfortably in it through our various academia and professor audits and so forth. But that's under pressure, as we know, and we are going to see that new model emerge. Thank you.
No, thank you very much. And it's absolutely fascinating. And for those of you who've hung on, which is the vast, vast majority of everyone, I really appreciate that. I think where you've got some interesting experiential learning models that are happening at your university or college somewhere in the world, please let us know. We are collecting all of this information. And if you can go back and have a look at some of the taxonomic work that we've done in the briefing today, we can help you apply it. You can help us by applying it as well. And let us know. We are collecting this. I can't tell you exactly what we're doing with it, but if you come to the summit, you will find out. Dr. Ruth Andrews, we really, really appreciate this today and for sharing your insights and some of the important work that's going on at Stellenbosch University. Dr. Ruth Andrews is the Experiential Learning Manager at Stellenbosch University in South Africa. Quick reminder, one more time, by the way, thank you very much as well for referring to AI and human-centered learning. Fourth dimension of our AI literacy framework. If you haven't downloaded it, it has obviously you can download that from the members area, including the full executive briefing about our AI literacy framework that's been very well received around the world. And this is a really, really great example of that fourth dimension in action. And of course, the fifth dimension around domain expertise as well. Quick reminder, please, if you are even just thinking about coming to the summit, let us know. Send an email to Gabrielle or to Maria or any of the team here at the Digital Education Council. We very much look forward to meeting you in person, especially if this is your first year in the council. You're warmly welcome. This is not going to be like any other summit that you have attended. The most important conversations in higher education. We're really going to make it worth your while. So please let us know who will be coming from your institution. But with that, I'd like to thank everyone for attending today. Thank you again to our research team, who've done a tremendous piece of work. If you like what we do, please let us know. Share it on your LinkedIn profiles. We're going to be making little clips of some of these interviews available publicly, but the report and the two interviews that I did, the one today with Ruth and the one yesterday with Ed Ballison from Duke University, will be available. Give us a couple of days for the interview edits, but the report should be up within the next hour or so in the members area. If you can't get into there, please let us know, and we'll make sure that your account is up and running as it should be. But with that, I really appreciate your attendance today. Thank you very much to everyone, and from me and Ali and the team here in Singapore. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. And we look forward to joining with you again very, very soon. Bye bye.